guest for today is Greg Harp. He's associate pastor at the Assembly of God Church in Wood River. Just returned from the Bahamas on a missions trip. I asked him where Atlantis was at, and he said, oh, that was way north of where I was. He was down in the bush in the sticks. So, Greg, if you'd come.
All right, well, it's wonderful to be with you all today. And now, okay, I just got to ask, as soon as you heard the fact that I had been on a missions trip to the Bahamas, what was your first reaction? Just honestly, anybody, just what's your opinion? You know, I have to say, Dick was probably my biggest nemesis before I went on this trip. He would say, every time he'd see me, he would say, yeah, missions trip, right? Yeah. And so now that I know he's been to Atlantis, I sort of have an idea of what he was thinking about. But anyway, I did want to share with you a little bit today. Dick had talked to me about it. We've been sharing with different people about what has happened on our trip. My wife, Kathy, and myself, we've been in ministry, well, actually for about 15 years altogether. And we've been different places, done different missions trips, different places. But this trip was unique for us for a specific reason. I've got a few pictures here today too. Could you give me just one moment here? I do want to share a few. I wish I had more pictures to share, and I understand that I've only got a little bit of time, so I'm only going to give you a handful of pictures here. Just to give you an idea of where Long Island, which is the place that we went to, I'm going to give you an idea of where that was. Right here. Hopefully we can see this. Can everybody sort of see this? Yeah, maybe if we can turn off some of those lights. There we go. Is that better? Yeah. Well, this is a picture of at least a good portion of the Bahamas. And where we went to, now Florida would be somewhere right up in this area. You'll see back over, and I think it didn't show up in this picture for some reason. Cuba would be back over in this area over here. We went to a little place, and I'll sort of go to my next slide here, and it'll give you a good idea. I think it's going to come up anyway. Find out in a second here. Try that again. There it is. All the way right down here in the corner. There is an island, and you can sort of see the tail end of it here. It comes like here and all the way up to there. That little island is called Long Island. Now, the island itself is 80 miles long. At its thinnest point, it's just a little under a mile. Now, the place where we were at, there was a specific church that we were working at, which is right in the center of the island, right around here. You can stand right next to the church. They have, because what water that they have is like basically rainwater that's purified. You can stand on their area where they have their water at, and you can see both sides of the island. So you can see both Atlantic and you can see the Caribbean Sea at the same time. But this island, now I'm going to tell you just a little bit more about it here. Let me give you another picture, get a little closer view of it here. Long Island, right around here is where we were at, right in this area. Anyway, my wife and I had went there. To give you a little bit of a brief history, about 10 years ago, we had the opportunity to take two different teams on two different occasions to this island. They were, the island, even though they do have a couple of churches on the island here and there, they haven't had a established church that has been trying to do any work to try to help, especially with some needs I'm going to tell you about in just a little bit here. One of those has to do with the teenagers on the island. And about 10 years ago, we came down there with two different groups to try to help them establish this church that they were building, this missionary group that was there. And whenever we were there, one of the things that had happened was they had said, we have a lot of grand dreams. We have a lot of vision for the future. Some of the things that they had wanted to do was, first of all, they wanted to reach out, like I said, to the teenagers on the island, which the island has 3,500 people approximately on it. Out of those 3,500, there's a little over 800 teenagers. And they have this growing population of teenagers that they're trying to figure out what to do with them. Because, think about it, I mean, this is like out in the middle of nowhere, and I'll show you some pictures of the island itself as far as some of the scenery and such in a little bit. Besides maybe going swimming, which it's really funny, Bahamians don't like to go swimming too much, which is sort of ironic since most Americans that go to the Bahamas, first thing they want to do is they want to go swimming. And that's sort of like, no, we don't want to go swimming. It's not that such a big deal. And so anyway, there's not much for them to do on this island. So 10 years ago, we had went to try to help them begin working with this. Well, back in January, here it is 10 years later, I get a phone call from the pastor of the church, who at the time was a good friend that we had met there. Him and his family helped take us in whenever we were on the island. And they actually were not the pastors of the church, but just someone from the island that was helping out. The missionaries, however, after we had left the island and turned the church over to the people that actually lived on the island. And what ended up happening was, about 4 years ago, our friend became the senior pastor of the church. And he had called in January of this year and said, we have a really big need. And this is what the need was. They said, the teenager population has continued to grow and get larger on the island. And there is this, out of this population of teens, we're finding more and more of them that are trying to get into the church. But they don't know how to get there, because the thing is that a lot of the families that live on this island do not attend any type of a church or anything like that. But the teens are very curious. So what was happening is, in this little bitty church, and I'll show you a picture of that. No, I don't have that picture with me here. The church, which is not that big of a church, maybe about twice the size of this room, basically. Okay, so it's not really huge. They have this growing number of teens that are coming in, up to about 180 teens at a time. And they said, we don't know what to do with them all. We knew that we were working with this 10 years ago, but now they're coming out of the woodwork, so to speak. And we've got to do something with them. And so they said, we need you to come back and help us. Plus, there were some other needs in the island as well that they said, we need your assistance with. So we quickly began to make our plans, and everything came together right at the last minute, literally at the last minute, where all of our funds came together and we were able to get down to the island. Whenever we got there, we noticed that there had been a lot of changes on the island since we had last been there. One of the things, because when we had been there previously, we were sort of confined to this area. We never got to go much north or south on the island. One thing that happened this time around, we were able to go throughout the island. That's one of the requests that we had. We said we wanted to really see a good scope of what really is happening in Long Island. Because one thing I didn't tell you is that there has been a growing interest in this little bitty island in the Bahamas, and not for vacationing purposes. There's a lot of people from different parts of the world that are coming in and saying, there's some significant things that are happening here. Even culturally, there's some things that they're noticing. And so people were coming in from different parts of the world and doing studies on this island and saying, okay, what's happening? What's going on here? And so we said we want to see a little bit more of it. So we drove north and south, and here's what we saw as we were going through the island. One of them was that we saw that the terrain was a lot different than what we had noticed in different places before. And in the Bahamas, this is a very unique island because it's very diverse. It's got hills, it's got what they call salt ponds, which are basically like these areas of water where the ocean has come in, but it's very, very shallow, so the salt concentration is so high that you can reach in and grab handfuls of salt. It's amazing. In fact, Morton Salt Company actually has had in the past an area there where they were harvesting the salt from this island because it was like free product for them right there. They got it all that they could anyway. So on the island there's also swamplands, there's beaches, there's all different types of things, there's caves, you name it. Probably the most unique thing, I'll show you this. This is one of the pretty scenes I'm going to show you here, is this one spot, and unfortunately it's skewed a little bit here, you're not getting the full picture of it, but it's called a blue hole on the island. There's only a handful of these throughout the world. And this blue hole is, you can be right here on the edge of the water, and you can be knee deep. You can walk all around here, walk all throughout this cove and be knee deep in water, step right here and it goes down 700 feet. And so there's only a handful in the world, and this happens to be the largest one.